The first sign of trouble came in the form of a canceled contract. Then another, and another. By the end of the week, half of my event planning business's clients had mysteriously pulled out, all citing the same vague concerns about reliability and financial stability. I knew exactly who was behind it. "Victoria's been busy," I muttered, staring at yet another cancellation email. My assistant, Lisa, looked up from her desk, her expression grim. "Your mother-in-law?" she asked, though we both knew the answer. "What's she done now?" I turned my laptop around to show her the latest email. "Convinced the Hendersons to cancel their daughter's wedding. That's the third wedding this month. My name is Claire Bennett, and for the past 2 years, I've run one of Boston's most successful boutique event planning companies, or at least I did until my mother-in-law, Victoria Marshall, decided to destroy everything I'd built. It started after her son, my husband David, died in a car accident 8 months ago. Victoria had never approved of me, convinced I'd married David for his family's money. The fact that I'd signed a prenup and started my own successful business didn't matter to her. In her eyes, I would always be the gold digger who wasn't good enough for her precious son. But this, actively sabotaging my business, this was a new low, even for her. "We need to do something," Lisa said, her voice tight with anger. "She can't just get away with this." I smiled, thinking about the thick envelope sitting in my desk drawer. "Don't worry, she won't." What Victoria didn't know, what no one knew except my lawyer, was that 6 months ago, I purchased her beloved family mansion at a private auction. The Marshall family estate, a sprawling Victorian mansion that had been in their family for generations, had been secretly mortgaged by Victoria's late husband to cover gambling debts. When the bank put it up for auction, I'd been there, bidding through a shell company. Victoria had no idea she was essentially living in my house. My phone buzzed. Speak of the devil. "Hello, Victoria," I answered, keeping my voice neutral. "Claire, darling," she purred, her voice drooping with false sweetness. "I just heard the most disturbing news about your little business. Clients dropping like flies. How unfortunate." I could practically hear her smirk through the phone. "Yes, it is rather unfortunate," I replied calmly. "I don't suppose you know anything about that?" She laughed, the sound sharp and cold. "Oh, please, don't blame me for your incompetence. I simply shared my concerns with a few friends. If they chose to take their business elsewhere, well, that's hardly my fault." "Of course not," I said, my free hand tightening around a pen. "Though I have to wonder why you're so invested in seeing me fail." "Invested?" she scoffed. "Don't flatter yourself. I just think it's time you accepted reality. Without David's connections, without his family's influence, you're nothing. You should have taken the money I offered and disappeared after the funeral." Ah yes, the generous offer she'd made at my husband's funeral, a check for $500,000 if I agreed to leave Boston and never return. I'd torn it up in front of her. "I'm not going anywhere, Victoria," I said firmly. "This is my home, my business, my life." "We'll see about that," she snapped before hanging up. I set the phone down, my hands shaking slightly with anger. Lisa watched me with concern. "What are you going to do?" I reached for my desk drawer, pulling out the envelope. "I'm going to remind Victoria that actions have consequences." Inside the envelope was a notice of eviction prepared by my lawyer and ready to be served. According to the terms of the auction sale, Victoria had been allowed to remain in the mansion as a tenant, paying rent to what she thought was an investment firm. But that arrangement could be terminated with 30 days' notice. I'd been holding on to it, waiting for the right moment. Victoria had just given it to me. "Lisa," I said, standing up, "cancel my afternoon appointments. I need to see my lawyer." An hour later, I sat in James Chen's office, watching as he reviewed the eviction notice. "Everything's in order," he said, looking up at me. "But are you sure about this? Once we serve the notice, there's no going back. Victoria will know you own the house." I thought about all the clients she'd scared away, the lies she'd spread about my business, the years of snide comments and barely veiled insults. "I'm sure," I said firmly. "It's time Victoria learned she can't bully people without consequences." James nodded, reaching for his phone. "I'll have the process server deliver it first thing tomorrow morning. You might want to be somewhere public when she gets it." I smiled grimly. "Oh, I know exactly where I'll be." The next morning, I sat at my favorite cafe, sipping coffee and waiting. The process server would be delivering the notice at 9 a.m. sharp. It was now 9:15. Right on cue, my phone exploded with notifications. First came the text messages, all caps and full of rage. How dare you? This is impossible. You sneaky little witchy. Then came the phone calls, which I let go to voicemail. Finally, an email arrived. You think you're clever, don't you? Buying my family's home through some shell company? This is a new low, even for you. But if you think I'm going to let you get away with this, you're sadly mistaken. I have friends in high places, connections you couldn't even imagine. By the time I'm done with you, you won't be able to plan a child's birthday party in this town. I forwarded the email to James, adding it to our growing file of Victoria's threats and interference. Then I picked up my phone and dialed a number I've been saving for just this moment. Hello, Richard? It's Claire Bennett. Remember that exclusive interview you wanted about Victoria Marshall's gambling scandal? I think I'm ready to talk. Richard Chen, no relation to James, was an investigative reporter who'd been trying to write a story about how the Marshall family fortune had been gambled away. Until now, I declined to comment out of respect for David's memory. But Victoria had forced my hand. I'll tell you everything, I said into the phone. About the mortgages, the debts, the auction, and about how Victoria's been systematically trying to destroy my business since David died. Richard was silent for a moment. This is going to be explosive, he said finally. Are you sure you're ready for the fallout? I thought about all the clients Victoria had scared away. All the events we'd lost, all the employees I might have to lay off if things didn't turn around. I'm sure, I replied. It's time for the truth to come out. As I hung up, my phone buzzed with another text from Victoria. Meet me at the house. Now we need to talk. I smiled, gathering my things. It was time for the next phase of my plan. The Marshall mansion loomed before me, its Victorian architecture, a testament to old money and older pride. Victoria was waiting on the front steps, her perfectly coiffed hair and designer outfit a stark contrast to the fury in her eyes. How dare you, she hissed as I approached. This house has been in the Marshall family for generations. And now it's mine, I replied calmly. Legally purchased at auction after your husband mortgaged it to cover his gambling debts. She flinched at the mention of her late husband's vices. You had no right. I had every right, I cut her off. Just like you had every right to feed lies to my clients, to try to destroy the business I built from scratch. The difference is, what I did was legal. What you did. That's called tortious interference, and it's grounds for a lawsuit. Victoria's face paled slightly, but she rallied quickly. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone, playing a recording. I simply shared my concerns with a few friends. If they chose to take their business elsewhere, well, that's hardly my fault. I have more, I said, stopping the playback. Every email, every phone call, every canceled contract, my lawyer has it all. What do you want? She demanded, her voice shaking slightly. I want you to stop interfering with my business. I want you to call every client you scared away and tell them you lied. And I want you to remember something, Victoria. I loved your son. David believed in me, supported my dreams. He would be ashamed of what you've done. Victoria stared at me, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palms. For a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Not just anger, but fear. You're bluffing, she said finally, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. You wouldn't dare go public with any of this. It would destroy the Marshall family name. The name you spent years telling me I wasn't worthy of. I asked, raising an eyebrow. The name you think gives you the right to destroy other people's lives. That name? I pulled out my phone again, showing her my recent call log. I just got off the phone with Richard Chen from the Boston Globe. He's very interested in writing about how the great Victoria Marshall has been systematically harassing her dead son's wife. The color drained from her face. You wouldn't. Try me, I said quietly. You've spent months trying to destroy everything I've built. Did you really think I wouldn't fight back? She sank onto the mansion's front steps, suddenly looking older than her 60 years. You don't understand, she whispered. This house, it's all I have left. For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered all the cruel things she'd done, not just to me, but to others who dared to cross her. No, Victoria, you don't understand. I didn't buy this house to hurt you. I bought it because I knew someday you'd go too far, and I need leverage to make you stop. She looked up at me, her eyes narrowing. What are you saying? I'm saying we can make a deal. You can stay in the house as my tenant, under certain conditions. What conditions? She asked warily. I sat down beside her, maintaining a careful distance. First, you call every client you scared away. You tell them you lied, that my business is perfectly stable and successful. Second, you stop spreading rumors about me. No more calls, no more sharing concerns with your friends. And if I refuse, then the eviction stands and Richard Chen gets his story, your choice. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the carefully manicured gardens she'd always taken such pride in. Finally, she spoke. David always said you were stronger than I gave you credit for. The mention of my late husband's name sent a familiar pang through my chest. David saw me for who I really was. You never bothered to try. She turned to look at me, really look at me, perhaps for the first time. Why did you stay? After he died, when I offered you the money. Why didn't you just take it and go? Because this is my home, I said simply. I built something here, something real, and because running away would have meant letting you win. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. You sound like him when you talk like that. So stubborn. He learned it from someone. I replied, thinking of all the times David had told me stories about his mother's legendary determination. Victoria stood up, brushing invisible dust from her designer skirt. I'll need time to make those calls. Some of these people, they're not going to be happy about being manipulated. You have until the end of the week, I said firmly, and I want to be copied on every email, included in every call. She nodded stiffly. And the house? Like I said, you can stay. But from now on, you pay rent to me, not to some faceless investment firm. And Victoria? I stood up to face her. If you ever try to hurt my business again, you'll be out of here so fast your head will spin. The next few weeks were interesting, to say the least. True to her word, Victoria made the calls. Some clients came back immediately, apologetic and embarrassed at having been misled. Others took more convincing, but slowly, steadily, my business began to recover. More surprising was the subtle shift in Victoria's behavior. The snide comments stopped. The cold looks became less frequent. And one day, about a month after our confrontation, she showed up at my office unannounced. I need your help, she said, looking uncomfortable. The garden club is hosting their annual charity gala, and our usual event planner just backed out. I stared at her, wondering if this was some kind of trap. You want me to plan the garden club gala? She nodded stiffly. You're the best in the business. Everyone says so. Even I have to admit your work is impressive. Coming from Victoria, this was practically a declaration of undying admiration. I bit back a smile. I'll need complete creative control, I said. No interference, no second-guessing my decisions. Fine, she agreed quickly, too quickly. But perhaps we could discuss some ideas. Over lunch? And that's how I found myself having weekly lunch meetings with my mother-in-law, planning what would turn out to be the most successful garden club gala in recent memory. It wasn't all smooth sailing, of course. Victoria was still Victoria, opinionated, demanding, and convinced she knew best about everything. But something had changed. There was a grudging respect now, an acknowledgement that perhaps I wasn't the gold digger she'd always assumed I was. 6 months after our confrontation on the mansion's steps, I sat in my office reviewing the year's finances with Lisa. We've not only recovered, she reported, grinning at the spreadsheet, we're up 30% from last year. The Marshall Garden Club Gala opened up a whole new market for us. I nodded, thinking about how things had changed. Victoria's connections aren't so bad when they're working for us instead of against us. Speaking of Victoria, Lisa said hesitantly, she left something for you this morning. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a key and a note. Claire, the east wing of the mansion has been empty since Arthur died. It seems foolish to waste the space when you're paying ridiculous rent for that tiny office downtown. Consider this a business proposition. You can run your company from here, and I'll finally have someone to share this ridiculous house with. Victoria. I stared at the note, remembering all the times Victoria had told me I didn't belong in the Marshall family home. Now she was inviting me in. The next day, I went to the mansion to inspect the east wing. Victoria was waiting, trying to appear casual but clearly nervous. The light is good for an office, she said, leading me through the rooms. And there's plenty of space for your team. She was right. The space was perfect. High ceilings, large windows, even a separate entrance for clients. But more importantly, it felt right. This was where David had grown up, where we had our wedding reception, where we planned to build our future before fate had other ideas. "There's one condition," Victoria said suddenly, stopping in what could be my new office. I tensed, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Sunday dinners," she continued. "If you're going to be working here, we should at least have dinner once a week, to discuss business, if nothing else." I looked at her, this proud, difficult woman who had caused me so much pain, but who was now, in her own way, trying to make amends. "I have one condition too," I replied. "No more secrets, no more games. If you have a problem with me or my business, you tell me directly." She nodded slowly. "I suppose I deserve that." "Yes," I agreed. "You do." 2 weeks later, my company moved into the east wing of the Marshall Mansion. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The business Victoria had tried to destroy was now operating under her own roof. But something unexpected happened as the weeks turned into months. The mansion, which had felt cold and imposing for so long, began to feel like home. Victoria, who had once been my greatest enemy, became, if not exactly a friend, then at least a respected ally. One Sunday evening, almost a year after our confrontation, Victoria and I sat in the garden after dinner. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the lawn where David and I had once planned to raise our children. "He would have loved this, Victoria said quietly. "Seeing you make this place your own, watching your business grow." I felt tears prick at my eyes. "I think he'd be happy to see us getting along too." She reached over and squeezed my hand, the first time she ever initiated physical contact. "I was wrong about you, Claire. I see that now." "Better late than never," I replied, managing a small smile. Later that night, as I walked through the mansion's halls, I thought about how life takes unexpected turns. I had bought this house as a weapon, a way to fight back against Victoria's cruelty. Instead, it had become a bridge, a way for two grieving women to finally understand each other. The next morning, I arrived at my office in the East Wing to find a small package on my desk. Inside was my grandmother's antique brooch, the one Victoria had always claimed was a cheap copy of a Marshall family heirloom. The note read simply, "Welcome to the family, finally. V." I pinned the brooch to my jacket, smiling at how things had changed. Victoria had tried to destroy my business, but in doing so, she forced us both to face some uncomfortable truths. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating your enemies, but from turning them into allies. And sometimes, just sometimes, the house you buy for revenge becomes the home you never knew you needed.